It took leaving my family to understand what freedom really felt like. I spent years trying to earn their approval, fit their mold, shrink myself to be loved. But when I finally walked away, I found peace and a version of me they'll never get to know. Then last week, they reached out again, and what I sent back said everything. I spent years trying to belong. It started early, little things, keeping my voice low at dinner, wearing the sweater my mother picked even though it itched, laughing politely when I didn't get the joke, learning which questions not to ask. By the time I was 13, I could feel the shift before it happened, the glance, the tone, the raised eyebrow that meant I was too loud, too opinionated, too much. So I learned to scale myself down, bit by bit, thought by thought. I stopped talking about the books I loved if they didn't sound smart enough. I stopped dancing in the hallway when music played. I got good at listening, really good, because the less I said, the safer it felt. My brother got praise for being bold. My cousin got a round of applause for pushing back, but I knew my lane, obedient, pleasant, predictable. I remember once saying I wanted to study art. My father looked at me and said, "Be serious." So I stopped saying it. And when I changed my major 3 years later, I didn't tell anyone. I just stopped bringing it up at family dinners, where the real conversations happened between people who sounded sure of themselves. I thought it would get easier if I kept trying, if I stayed helpful, if I hit the marks. Birthdays, graduations, holidays, I showed up on time, smiled in the photos, wore what wouldn't stand out. When they called, I picked up. When they needed help, I said yes. When they talked over me, I stayed quiet. And for a while, it worked. They didn't praise me, but they didn't criticize me either. And I thought maybe that was love being tolerated, accepted, seen just enough to keep going. It took me years to understand that the price of being accepted was being invisible. Their love always had conditions. They never said the rules out loud, but I learned them anyway. Rule 1, don't embarrass them. Rule 2, don't question them. Rule 3, if you want peace, be quiet. Authenticity was treated like rebellion. If I spoke up, I was difficult. If I cried, I was sensitive. If I disagreed, I was selfish. They'd use those words like corrections, spoken gently, always with a smile, but sharp enough to cut. You know, we just want what's best for you. That line always came after they'd torn something down. A choice, a haircut, a friend, they didn't scream, they didn't punish. They withheld approval, warmth, belonging. And then, just when I started to feel the chill, they'd thaw just enough to keep me near. One time I got a tattoo, nothing big, just a small one hidden under my sleeve. My mom saw it by accident and said, "I guess we didn't raise you the way we thought we did." She didn't say it like a joke. She said it like a disappointment she'd wear for the rest of her life. I apologized. Not because I was sorry, but because I needed the room to feel safe again. I dated someone they didn't like, too quiet, too unserious. I got the cold shoulder for weeks. My dad wouldn't look him in the eye. My aunt said, "You can do better in front of him." When we broke up, they acted like they'd won something. Every time I moved closer to who I was, they pulled away, made jokes that didn't land, offered support that came with strings. Love was never love unless I earned it the way they preferred, small, agreeable, soft-edged. Eventually, I stopped bringing anyone around. I stopped talking about anything real. I smiled through dinners, gave them updates that meant nothing, and saved the truth for the people who didn't need me to shrink. That's when I realized I was more tolerated than loved. And the cost of being tolerated was never being myself. I thought if I was good enough, they'd change, so I worked for it. Quietly, obsessively. Every A on a test, every internship, every accomplishment, I stacked them like proof. If I kept winning on paper, eventually they'd see me. I picked the degree they wanted, the job they respected. I showed up at family events looking polished and composed, made sure to say the right things in the right tone. I didn't talk about the nights I couldn't sleep. I didn't bring up how lonely it felt to constantly perform. When I got promoted, my dad said, "Well, hard work pays off." Not a smile, not a hug. Just confirmation that I'd met the standard for that moment. Nothing more. When I bought my first car, my mom asked, "Did you think about how much the insurance will be?" Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "That's huge." Just worry disguised as care. I was never celebrated, just evaluated. Even when I did everything they asked, the target moved. They always found a way to be unimpressed, or worse, concerned. You seem tired. Don't burn out. Are you sure you're making the right choices? They never asked what I wanted. They never wondered what made me happy. They just measured me against the version of me they thought they deserved and reminded me every time I fell short. So I tried harder, took on more, bit my tongue when they were rude, swallowed my feelings when they made backhanded comments about how I dressed or who I dated or where I lived. I thought if I could just be perfect, they'd soften. They didn't. And every time they stayed cold, I turned the blame inward. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I wasn't enough. I didn't realize until much later that it was never about me being good. It was about them never being satisfied. I finally broke the pattern. It wasn't loud. It didn't come with yelling or some final showdown. It was quiet. So quiet it scared me at first. I just stopped. Stopped calling to check in. Stopped offering updates they didn't ask for. Stopped rearranging myself to keep the peace. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't explain. I just stopped giving them access to the version of me they'd trained me to be. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I'd just finished a work call and my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. You should really stop posting so much. It's not a good look. That was it. No context, no conversation. Just another reminder that my visibility made them uncomfortable. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then put my phone down. Not in anger, just done. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I didn't ask what she meant. I deleted the thread, sat back in my chair. Let the quiet fill the room. I didn't cry. I didn't replay old conversations. I didn't feel sorry. It felt like snapping a thread I didn't realize had been pulled tight for years. I went for a walk. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't feel guilty. For the first time, I wasn't trying to prove anything. Not worth, not loyalty, not goodness. I didn't need to, because I already knew who I was. And I was tired of being small just to fit inside a family that never left room for the full version of me. Leaving felt like breathing for the first time, not in a dramatic way, not like I was running, just relief, weight off. Noise gone, no daily performance. No scanning text for subtext. No walking into rooms already bracing for a comment. Just silence. The first morning after, I woke up and didn't reach for my phone. No one was waiting to remind me who they thought I should be. No passive-aggressive check-ins. No guilt disguised as concern. I made coffee and sat on the floor by the window. Sun hit the rug in a square and stayed there. I stayed there too, didn't rush. Didn't check the time. I didn't feel behind. The stillness wasn't empty. It was full. Of space, of breath, of me. I played music out loud while I made breakfast. No one rolled their eyes. No one asked if I could turn it down. I wore what I wanted and didn't second-guess it. I didn't think about how it would be received. There were no reactions to manage. No eggshells to tiptoe across. Just choices. Mine. That week, I stopped answering unknown numbers. I didn't owe anyone a conversation. I didn't need to be the bigger person. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. Not in the big, cinematic way people imagine. In the real way. The way that feels like standing still and realizing the ground under you finally belongs to you. I started building a life that felt like mine. Not the one they approved of. Not the one that looked good in family updates. Just mine. I filled it with quiet mornings, late walks, and people who didn't flinch when I was honest. I stopped saying yes out of habit. I stopped apologizing when I hadn't done anything wrong. I got to know my own rhythms, when I liked to wake up, how I liked my coffee, what silence sounded like when it wasn't punishment. The apartment was small, but every inch of it was mine. I hung art without wondering if someone would find it too much. I kept fresh fruit in the kitchen and didn't feel the need to explain why I wasn't cooking from scratch. I reconnected with friends I'd kept at a distance because they made me feel too seen. The kind who didn't want anything from me but truth. I told them stories I used to edit. They didn't flinch. I laughed more. Not performative, polite laughs. Real ones. The kind that surprised me. I caught myself singing while cleaning. Something I hadn't done since I was a teenager, back when I still believed it was okay to take up space. I said no to things that didn't feel right. I stopped chasing harmony with people who only offered silence in return. There was no performance anymore. No guilt. No mental list of who I needed to please next. Just peace. Not perfect, not easy, but mine. I found a version of me they never met, and never will. She was sharper. Quieter, not in the silenced way, but in the intentional way. She didn't fill space to keep things light. She didn't soften herself so other people could stay comfortable. She knew how to listen without absorbing, knew when to leave a room, knew how to protect her own peace like it was worth something, because it was. I started writing again. Not for approval, not for applause, just because I had something to say and finally no one hovering to make me doubt it. My voice wasn't shaky anymore. It had shape. It had roots. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who didn't need permission. Not to change her hair, not to wear bold colors, not to say, that doesn't work for me. There was a confidence I hadn't earned through validation. It came from choosing myself every day and not needing anyone to notice. I didn't miss their praise. I didn't miss the texts. I didn't miss the version of me that used to beg for crumbs and call it love. The girl they knew was gone. This woman, they'd never get the chance. And I liked it that way. I didn't need to announce anything. No dramatic post, no long text thread, no statement of boundaries, just silence. I stopped reaching out, stopped replying, stopped explaining the absence they helped create. I didn't owe them a summary of the work I'd done to survive them. My absence said enough. They noticed. I could tell. The likes on old photos, the occasional view on a story. A random message from a second cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, saying, "Hope you're okay." Translation, they were talking, wondering, but I didn't feed it. I didn't post to prove anything. I didn't try to look happier than I was. I didn't try to make anyone miss me. I just lived, quietly, fully, in my space, in my peace. People say silence is passive. It's not. It's a decision, a shield, a full sentence. Every time I didn't reply, I reclaimed a piece of myself. Every time I chose not to explain, I deepened the line between who I used to be and who I am now. They expected me to come back eventually. Maybe not with an apology, but with a softened edge. A version of me they could still manage, but I never returned. I was too busy being free. They stayed silent for years, long enough for me to stop waiting, long enough for holidays to pass without the ache. Birthdays came and went with quiet. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wonder if they remembered. At first, it stung. Not because I wanted them back, but because I thought maybe I still mattered. I'd see a family photo posted without me and feel the pinch. The space I used to fill so carefully, just gone, like I was never there, but time did what time does. The sting dulled, the space closed. Eventually, I stopped noticing which days used to be ours. I made new ones. New rhythms, new traditions, new faces around the table. No one asked me to shrink. No one made jokes that weren't jokes. No one monitored my joy. I didn't miss being edited, and I didn't chase being remembered. The truth is, their silence was a gift. It gave me room to grow without interference. To become someone I wouldn't have survived becoming if I'd stayed in their orbit. They thought their absence would punish me. It freed me. Then last week they reached out of nowhere, out of habit, an email from my mother. Subject line, hi, no other context, just that. I opened it knowing exactly what it would feel like before reading a word. That familiar tug, part curiosity, part armor. It wasn't long, just a few lines. No greeting, no apology. I know it's been a while. We've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. It would be nice to hear your voice. Not I'm sorry. Not I understand why you left. Just a vague invitation wrapped in nostalgia, sent like nothing happened. I stared at it for a while. Not angry, not moved, just still. It didn't come from reflection. It didn't come from growth. It came from comfort disrupted. From silence they didn't expect to last this long. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They missed the version of me who stayed quiet, who kept showing up, who made things easier for everyone but herself, and they wanted her back. But she's gone. They said they missed me. But not once did they say sorry. Not for the years I spent trying to earn kindness. Not for the way they dissected me behind polite smiles. Not for how they disappeared the second I stopped performing. The message was soft, careful, like a trap padded in nostalgia. We miss your energy. It hasn't been the same without you. You've always been the heart of this family. Heart. Like I wasn't a person, like I was a function. There was no mention of the silence that followed my leaving, no accountability, no acknowledgement of why I left. Just a subtle implication that I'd overreacted, stayed away too long, and maybe now was the time to come home. It was manipulation, plain and sweet. They missed access, not connection. They missed control, not closeness. They missed convenience. I didn't need to read between the lines. They were always good at saying what sounded like love but felt like pressure. This wasn't new. It was the same performance, just dressed in a new script. And I wasn't auditioning anymore. I reread the message twice, not because I was tempted, because I was sure. Sure of how far I'd come, sure of who I was now, sure of how quiet my life had become without their constant commentary in it. The first time I read it, I felt nothing. The second time, I felt clarity. Their words didn't pull at me. They didn't make me ache. They didn't stir any part of me that once would have rushed to fix things. They just confirmed what I already knew. Nothing had changed. The language was softer, but the logic was the same. I was supposed to feel guilty. I was supposed to feel flattered. I was supposed to see their vague sentiment as a bridge. But it wasn't a bridge, it was bait. And I didn't bite. I closed the email, I didn't delete it. I didn't need to, it had no weight. There was no anger, no sadness, just certainty. I didn't need to react to feel in control. I already was. I knew they still wanted the old me. The one who folded fast, who backed down first, who filled silence with apologies even when she hadn't done anything wrong. The message wasn't a reach for connection. It was a reach for control. They missed the version of me who asked permission, who watered herself down to be tolerable, who edited her voice, her clothes, her life to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. They missed the me who stayed small. I could feel it between the lines, how carefully they'd written it to avoid taking responsibility. How they dangled the word miss like it meant something more than we want you compliant again. It wasn't about healing. It was about resetting. They wanted to rewind to before I walked away, before I drew a boundary, before they had to sit in their own silence and realize I wasn't coming back just because time passed. But I wasn't the same. I'd grown into someone who didn't need their approval to feel whole. I could see their motives so clearly now, it almost made me laugh. They didn't miss me. They missed the convenience of me. I thought about ignoring it, letting the message sit there unopened, unread, untouched, letting my silence speak for itself again, and for a while that was the plan. But then I remembered who I am now. Not the girl who shrinks. Not the woman who stays silent to keep the peace. Not someone who lets her absence be twisted into indecision. This wasn't about anger. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about closure. It was about clarity. And clarity deserves a voice. I didn't need to convince them of anything. I didn't need to rehash old harm or walk them back through the ways they tried to mold me into something I never agreed to be. I just needed to answer in a way that honored who I'd become. Someone steady, someone whole. Someone who no longer explains herself to people who never really listened. So I sat down, opened a blank message, and started writing. I took my time, no rush, no spiraling, no rehearsed defensiveness. Just calm fingers on the keyboard and a version of the truth that didn't need dressing up. I wasn't writing to be heard. I wasn't writing to change their minds. I was writing to tell the truth to myself. Draft after draft, I trimmed the fat, took out every explanation, cut the lines that tried to soften the blow or make it easier for them to swallow. This wasn't for their comfort. It was for my peace. There was no need to rehash details they'd ignored the first time. No need to outline every moment they made me feel small. No need to prove I was justified. I already knew I was. The final version was short, sharp, unapologetic, nothing poetic, nothing cruel, just a truth I could stand behind with both feet on the ground. I sat with it for a full hour before hitting send, not because I was unsure. Because I knew once it was out there, it was done, and I would never have to explain myself again. I sent one line, simple, direct, final. I'm not coming back and I don't owe you anything. That was it, no greeting, no closure, no invitation for more. It didn't ask for a response. It didn't leave a door open. It didn't try to sound graceful or measured or kind. It was the clearest thing I'd ever written. Because it came from a version of me they never expected to meet. the one who stopped confusing silence with kindness, and finally learned the difference between keeping peace and keeping myself. I didn't reread it. I didn't watch for a reply, I just hit send and let it go. Then I blocked them again, not out of anger, out of peace. I didn't hover over the button, didn't second guess it, just clicked and moved on. The same way you shut a door to a room you no longer live in. No message, no warning, no speech. I wasn't waiting for a reaction. I wasn't hoping they'd finally get it. I didn't need them to. I already had what I needed: distance, clarity, a quiet life with no strings left dangling. They'd had their chance, more than one. Blocking them wasn't about punishment. It was about protection. Mine, from the chaos they carried, from the manipulation they dressed up as care, from the constant pull to prove I was good enough for a version of love that never really was. I gave myself the gift they never did: a clean break, no access, no edits, no way back in. This wasn't a pause, this wasn't a timeout. This was permanent. I didn't wait for a reply. There was nothing left to hear, no curiosity, no part of me that wondered what they'd say, no itch to check the inbox, no voice in my head hoping they'd finally say the words they never could. I wasn't holding my breath anymore. Their silence didn't mean suspense. It meant nothing, because I wasn't in limbo. I wasn't teetering. I wasn't quietly hoping for some last-minute redemption arc. I had let go, completely. No more looking over my shoulder. No more replaying conversations, trying to figure out what I could have said differently. No more writing them into the future in case they changed. They didn't, and I didn't need them to. I wasn't frozen in time. I wasn't defined by the way they left or the way they reached out or the words they never said. I was free. And when you're free, you don't wait for echoes. You walk forward and don't turn around. My life didn't pause. It expanded. Their message didn't interrupt anything. It didn't shake my routines or cloud my days. It didn't belong in the life I was living now. I still woke up early, made my own coffee, opened the curtains to let in the sun that felt like it showed up just for me. I still texted the people who showed up without conditions, laughed at inside jokes, made plans I didn't dread, took up space in rooms where I didn't have to edit myself. I still walked into work knowing I belonged there, not because I was perfect, but because I didn't need to shrink to be accepted. I still looked in the mirror and saw a woman I liked, not because she was polished or impressive, but because she was honest. There was nothing to pause, no momentum lost, no hole left behind. My life had grown around the absence, filled in the spaces they used to occupy with people who didn't see me as a problem to fix. I didn't just survive leaving. I built something beautiful in its place, and nothing they could ever say now would touch it. What I sent said everything: I'm free, I'm done, and I'm never going back. Not because I hate them, not because I'm bitter, but because I finally learned what love isn't, and I refuse to call control a connection ever again. I live in a home that feels like mine, where no one corrects my tone or questions my choices in the name of concern, where joy isn't rationed and silence isn't a punishment. I laugh louder now, take up more space, cry without shame, leave when something feels wrong, stay when it feels right. I wear what I like, say what I mean, rest when I need it. I don't ask for permission to be whole. I built this life from the ground up with truth, with intention, and without anyone's approval. There's peace here, not the kind that comes from walking on eggshells, the kind that comes from knowing I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. They'll never meet this version of me, and that's the consequence. Not because I'm cruel, because I'm healed. And healing isn't about going back. It's about knowing who you'll never be again. That one line I sent, it wasn't closure. It was freedom. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.